Hey guys, I'm Jfok from Jfok Spaghettorium. I'm making this video in order to help people that have acquired the code system named Hold Input to Skip Cutscene, acquired either from our Patreon or from stores like itch.io, Construct3 stores, etc. This small system was made from our need to skip cutscenes in Skyranch.life in a way that's easy for the user to do but unlikely to be done accidentally. This is the example. Now I'm holding the mouse button and the spacebar, and as you can see, the input button must be held long enough in order for the skip to be triggered. The input type can be easily changed, and the duration of how fast this text grows can also be adjusted. This is the Construct3 project. It has two layouts. It has the global layers layout, which is a object bank for all the global layers that I use. It has only this layer on the top, Hold Input to Skip Cutscene. This is just the background. So this is a global layer. It has this skipped label, which is a text object, and it has two other text objects here. One is called skip text, and the other one is overlapping it. While this one is selected, if you hold the tab button on your keyboard and you click again, it will select the overlapping. It will just start to loop through all the overlapping objects. So this is skip text, it's called, it's type text, and I added an instance variable. This one is the skip highlight. It's the one on the top. Right now it's invisible. It's what starts filling up here. And then if I hold the tab button, I click again, and now I selected the skip one, the one that's actually gray. So this system is made mainly from these two text objects which are overlapping. In order to use the system, you need to create this global layer and need to add it in every other layer where you require it. So I added it in the example layout, which is here. It's slightly different, but not by far. And I added it here on the top. As event sheets, we have the docs, which, thank you, the changelog, the terms of use, our links. This resource, I need to replace it because it's not related anymore. I will add the video link in here. Thanks to our Patreons. And this is the documentation. It's very small, but there is some inline documentation as well. So basically naming conventions, and this is kind of what I just showed you. The code specific, this is the code system's code. After you add the layer to your layout, you need to also add the event sheet. So in the example layout, I have to add the hold input to skip cutscene so that the code will run. So it uses three variables. This is the speed. If you read from the naming conventions in the docs, I like to end local variables with _L, global variables with _G, though there won't be any here. This is the speed of how fast the highlight will go on top of the gray text. So this is the gray text here, which gets dynamically populated. You will have to adjust where it will start. As you can see, there's some space here. So what I like to do is I like to write the text that I need, and then I will position it properly. So this is the gray text, and the highlight text uses the speed to create the text again, and once it's overlapping, we have this effect. The smaller this value, the faster it will grow. So this is super fast. It's also very smooth, but maybe it's a bit too fast. This is the skip text I will show. As I explained, it's dynamically populated. You can not have it dynamically populated, but then you're gonna have to write this text in the global layers, and then you're gonna have to use this variable to hold the text anyway, because the highlight uses this variable to start growing. The character index, we use this to check the current, to hold the current index from the skip text, because we use mid, which requires an index and from where and how many characters. On start of layout, we set this index to 0 because it's static, so it needs to be reset. We initialize the skip texts, and here every speed seconds, if there is any input, here we use the append text to get the character that needs to be added to the highlight text, because the highlight text grows one character at a time. Sometimes it grows two characters when there's an empty space, because if you have an empty space, it will appear like the animation is getting paused for a bit, but that wasn't looking as great, so I wrote it in a way that empty text gets skipped. This is what mid does. It returns n characters starting at an index in a string. So we take the text that we want to show, we take the index that keeps on growing as the highlight grows, and it's usually one character, unless the text is empty, so it's a space, in which case we use two characters. Also here the index must grow. Usually it grows by 1, but if it's a space bar, it needs to grow one more time to show properly. And in here we have the formula to set the character index, which is one of the main points of the system. If the character index is bigger than 0 and the length is of the text it must show, then we trigger the skip signal. I decided on using signals because then you, in whatever event sheet your game has logic in, you can try to capture the signal and do the logic of whatever you need it to be, like to skip the cutscene, or maybe you want to do something else with it. And the example layout, you can see here on signal skip, and it logs in the console, and it also shows the label in the middle of the screen. As object types, we have browser, gamepad, keyboard, mouse, touch. If you want to add different inputs, you just add it to this list, which will kind of grow, but it's kind of the only way to do it. Here I wrote a function to check if the gamepad index 0 is down. Index 0 for the Xbox controller is the A button. And I wrote this function because I wanted to loop through 4 gamepads, possible gamepads, and check if any of it is down. We use this return value variable because it starts at 0, so if this loop doesn't run, it will return 0, which is fine. If it does run and it finds that a button is down, the value gets set to 1, the loop stops, and the value gets returned. Stop loop usually would be on the bottom, but Construct doesn't really care about this. If you put it here, it's gonna run the actions and then it will stop the loop. I use it on the top to kind of as a guideline for myself, because when I know a loop must stop, I use it on the top and then I can forget about it, rather than putting a lot of actions and then hopefully remembering that the loop must stop after all these actions. And that is kind of it. It's very small. This formula here took, well, this whole thing took a decent amount to figure out, but and if you start with one input and continue with the other, the progress will be saved. So if you swap from spacebar to mouse, if you keep both pressed, the speed does not increase in any way. Thanks for watching, I hope it's useful for you. Bye!